morning. Welcome to the latest episode of Convector Developers Office Hours. Today we'll be talking about unit testing identities uh, and some updates that we delivered this week to the Convector platform, the Convector Suite. We will be giving a couple of minutes so people can join. So we will start in just a couple of minutes. Just all right. Again, let's just start the today's show. So, first of all, let me share my screen. Um, Today, I want to cover a couple of topics that included some releases that we did this week for the Convector suite on both the Convector framework and the Convector CLI, as well as in Harley. We did some modifications this week, so it could be easier for you to test your chain codes, your smart contracts very well. As always, you can go in the video in the episode. Uh, but yeah, if you want to get to know more about this, is this video is going to be the best source for that. So one of the biggest changes, one of the greatest changes that we delivered this week uh, to the Convector platform, and is well. Let me first start by creating a new project. I'll start creating a new project in here right now in this folder coffee. Let me step out a little bit, and I'll be just executing count new. Okay, actually let me type npm I or cvu slash convector CLI. I want to start this globally, so I'll be just putting the dash G. You should do this. Okay, so convector. Okay, spell it word. Okay. So this should install the latest version of Convector CLI, which at the moment is, as you can see here in the package JSON, at the moment is 1.1.6. So make sure that you have the latest version of this dependency installed in your systems. When you create a new project with Convector CLI, now among a couple of other things, it will include a unit test, an end-to-end test for all your chain code components, and it will by default include some of the improvements that we did this week for Convector in the unit test files as well. So you can see that I already have created a project in here. This is this coffee repository that, by the way, I encourage you to go and take a look at it. It's inside Warsivu coffee traceability. You can find example in here. It's a new traceability example that we just published this week about having to merge three coffee producers into a single roasted coffee company that at the end will deliver a single finished product, and it will have all the information to give you traceability about this finished product, about where were located the initial producers of this coffee, like information about the height of the ground, where this coffee was planted, right, was produced, and information about the producers as well, information about which was the company that roasted this coffee and things like that. So if you're really interested on giving traceability examples, you can take this example as a pattern, right? You can just copy this and modify it as you need. All right, now that we have new, say, test unit tests, I will be creating a new Convector project called unit test, so you can see the output of the project. Unit test. If I open my Visual Studio here, you will see a couple of things different. Is we were not including by default any git ignore file on the projects, so I was tracking everything for you. Now I'm adding a couple of defaults that you will probably want to have, like modules and things like that. Also, these folders for the compiled JavaScript code, as well as the generated Shine code folder. Since that's a generated code, you most probably don't want to track that in your Git repository, right? Another file that we're generating right now is this editor config file. That if you have the extension installed, this is a file used by a regular IDE plugin, which its name is editor config. So if you look for this editor config, you'll find this is a plugin. It's available on all major text editors or IDEs. What it does, it will just respect some conventions about, like, you want to use two spaces and don't use tabs or things like that. So by default, it's now being included on all the Convector CLI generated projects. You can, if you are like working with a different setup, you can come here and change the settings to what you use in your projects, and anyone collaborated in your project will just use the same standard. Some more updates that we have in here is, we have, since we have added unit test and end-to-end test, we have now both commands in here that you can run both by running npm run test or npm run test end-to-end. Those have changed now. And let me see, some of the other changes that we did is on the unit test. So let's start by showing the changes that we have for. Okay, let me run npm install here. Some of the changes that we have for the mock adapter. The mock adapter. Now, you usually, when you need to try identities or test identities that your controller is handling this sender property will in your contract, you usually have to go and figure out how to create a certificate for your use case. You first have to find out where to create a certificate, how to create a certificate, and what information to put on it to test your contracts very well. And then you have to figure out, okay, now I have a certificate, how do I load this in the mock controller adapter? We have a couple of documentations pages for that, but I wanted to make it a little bit more easy for you. So I included a default certificate generator inside the mock controller adapter. So you now can create certificates on the fly for your tests without doing too much work. So, okay, while we wait for this install to finish, you can see now I have this adapter in here, which is a mock controller adapter, right? I'm initializing it in here. I'm initializing as well the controllers that will be available in this adapter too. But now I'm doing an extra step, which is this adapter.add user and I'm passing a string. This will be the username of my new generated user. So this user will be available just on runtime. It's in memory, so once the test finishes, it will just wipe out all the keys, all the cryptographic keys, and the certificates being used, etc., etc. But during the test, it will be available for you. Now, what this does is internally in the mock adapter, it will create a cryptographic key. It will generate a certificate for it, and it will store that in memory. So, how can I use this certificate? That's actually really easy. So, Convector, the controller client. You remember the client factory that we have in here is a Convector controller client. We initialize this and we pass the controller that we want to generate a client for, and the adapter that we are going to use to this controller. So if you remember, 2 episodes ago on the Convector Developers Office Hours number 10, if I remember correctly, we talk about this exact same class, the Convector controller client, and it has a couple of utilities that you can use when making calls or invocations to the blockchain. It's not just for unit testing, it's actually for all the adapters, right? And one of those utilities is this with user. So this method was only working right now for the browser controller adapter that we have right now to mock the user that you want to, or mock the identity that you want to pass in your browser tests. But now you can use this with user method, this with user helper on the with the mock controller adapter. And the way that you do that is just by passing a string with the username. It's the same username that you passed in here in the add user method above, and then you call the function that you want to invoke, whatever that function is. This will basically tell, okay, use this controller, change the adapter that you use, change the user that you use by pushing this. Internally, it will pick up the certificate that you generated up in here, and use that certificate to invoke this method. So when the time comes and when I run this controller method, which is create, since it's a newly generated project, it doesn't have too much. But if I do something like, okay, I want you to return this sender, so I can be aware about what's being passed on it, right? Console.log, and I want to pass that in here. So identity is going to be this, yeah. All right, and now I will run the test. So I will run npm run test. If I do this, you will most probably see the console log in here. So, and the good thing is about this with user is that it's not, as I say, it's not just available for, oops, it failed. Let me see what fails in here. Let's see, font, version, chain code, parsing, timeout, 200 milliseconds. Huh. It took more time expected. All right, let me just copy one thing in here. Yeah, this one. And Mocha is complaining it's taking too much time. I'm not really sure why. Probably because I'm broadcasting the video. Is memory is being slow on my computer right now. So yeah, I got the test success this time. So identity is not what I'm expecting. Let me see what's going on. All right. Create. Okay, it should be working. Yeah. All right, let's just stop to improvise, and I really have a working example of this in here. So I have this coffee project that I was mentioning you at the beginning, right? And with this coffee project, I'm probably doing something silly on our project. Uh, on this coffee project, and to show you like the big example that I wanted to show you here, is in here we have an adapter with an init. We're initializing 3 users. So I will have one user called producer A, and another user producer B, and another user named toaster, which is actually roaster. Then I'm creating identities for each of those users. So I have this participant controller. You are mostly familiar with this participant pattern that we have in your repositories. Um, Having this participant controller, you will register users, and right now I'm just passing the ID and the name for each user, but I'm changing the identity, the mock identity that I have with the users that I created above in here, right? Producer A, producer B, and toaster, and I'm registering all of them. Then this is just the before the preparations for my test to run, right? On this our section, I'm going to create some grain batches. The grain batches are going to have some references to the participant IDs. You can see that in here. So it can create a new batch of coffee grains, and it will have a reference of who were the producers of this batch. It will have information about the grain, the height, the price, etc., etc. And I will create the batch using again the producer A, right? Then later I will have 3 batches created. So one of those batches is going to be produced by producer A and B. The other one is going to be producer A, and the other one is going to be produced by producer B. I will register both of, well, all the 3 batches, producer A, and producer B. And at the end, I will have a toast batch, which is taking and combining all these kind of batches into a single roasted coffee batch, right? So I'm calling the coffee controller with the create toast batch, which is actually roast. Create roast batch. I'm passing the roast batch that I created above in here, and I'm passing the composition of this batch. So I'm telling it, okay, it's going to be composed by the batch 1, batch 2, and batch 3 with this amount of portions of each of those batches. So what will happen at the end is that I can do a full query. You can see here I'm using the coffee controller, and I'm making this use of this special token query. If you remember on the Convector controller client, this query, what it does is it sends a transaction sends a request, a transaction proposal to one of the peers, not to all of the peers that on the network, just to one. And when it gets a response back, it will just end the task. A regular transaction sends the transaction proposal to all the peers, then waits for all of them to respond correctly, and if they do, it will send the response to the orderer, so it can be added to the ledger of all the corresponding organizations. The query method just do a single query, so it's a single call to one of the peers, and it gets back to the response that this peer has. So this will not produce any other block in the blockchain. This is very useful for like making invocations of functions that just return data and do not store anything on the ledger, which is the case of this get toast batch. This get toast batch will have a toast batch ID, and it will get back the full model, and the full model will have this property composition, which is basically all the traceability properties for this batch. So let's see this. Let's see, demo coffee npm run test. Let's see if the gods of the demos are on my favor today. So at the end, it will give you a full report of, okay, this batch, and it will show you the batch ID. Sorry, this is in here. The batch and the batch ID, the toast batch, the full batch, is composed of, and it will iterate over all the composition items that it has inside of it, and it will print which percentage of that batch was created with the corresponding. Let's see, this is the participant test. Okay, this is the other test. Yeah. Someone is not on my favor today. Let me see what's gonna. Increase blah blah. Yeah, this must be because of the time. It's giving me a memory leak. Yeah, don't run unit test and stream at the same time because this is going to give you a couple of troubles. Looks like the memory goes crazy when you're streaming. So let's just increase the timeout for Mocha. All right. See the test. So yeah, at the end you will have a report of all the batches and the corresponding percentage, the information about this batch ID, the information about the location where this batch was produced, the location about the height, about the ground meters, about sea level, and it will give you information about all the producers involved in this coffee batch. Right. So while we wait for the test to finish, because this is still slow, my computer is still slow, I want to show you as well the other tests generated by the Convector CLI now. So you will see that in the test folder you will have a spec file, and you will also get a E2E file. This E2E file is meant to be for end-to-end testing. Okay, test run successfully. More time was the solution. So, okay, at the end it will give you a report. So the batch and the batch ID is composed of 30% from this batch made in San Jose, which is the city that I live currently, and the height about the ground, about the sea level, sorry, and the producers involved in this batch. If you remember, the first batch was producer A and B, and the second batch, and it will say it was from producer A, and the third batch is just 30% of the whole toast batch or roasted batch, and it was made from the producer B. So this can give you like full traceability. Now in this case I'm just printing the information this way, but you have the information available to print it as you need. You can, the idea here is to show you that you can split, have a single model, split it into multiple different pieces, and combine those pieces into other model, which is what I'm doing here. I'm having a small batches model. I'm splitting those models into different roast batches ID, and I'm merging those small pieces into here. So yeah, you can. That's the idea of this repository about the traceability. You can also have, okay, we were in the end-to-end test file. So the end-to-end test file will have the exact same code, but it will connect into Fabric network. So let me run this so we don't have to wait again. Start coffee. All right, I will install a contract. I have already a Harley network running. But yeah, this end-to-end test file will have an adapter, which is the Fabric controller adapter, and it will be pre-configured already to communicate with Harley. It will use by default use the user one, the channel one. The chain code is the name of your project, which is how I'm installing it right here with the coffee command, right? And it will provide paths for you to communicate with Harley. So at the end, you will have exactly the same code. There's some extra configurations that you have to do since this is communicating with a fabric network. You can query the CoachDB, so it already has the configuration to talk with a CoachDB. And check out this. You can still do the same thing. You can still use the with user and pass user one, but which user is going to be using now? So since I configured the key store already for this adapter, this with user method is going to pick one of the users available in this folder. So this with user will work with the fabric controller adapter as well, only if this user is available on the same organization where this adapter was initialized. If you have multiple organizations and you want to switch between users and between organizations at the same time, the solution for right now is you can duplicate this adapter and basically generate one adapter per each organization that you have, and then you can easily, like using the right adapter on the right controller client, switching users between the adapters, between users in the same organization. Sorry. So yeah, this will send the request using the user 1 of organization 1 and user 2 and user 3. And let's see if this finished. Since the computer is slow right now, it's going to take a little bit. But the rest of the test is mostly the same. We're registering the batch and then making sure, for example, in here, in here we're going to make a query call, getting the information from the nodes, and then we will be printing the same result. Okay. While we wait for this chain code instantiation to complete, there was another thing. Now that we're running out of time almost, there was another thing, another update that I wanted to show you that we did this week. Actually, it was a collaboration from a community member. You can see this pull request in here actually, or Cebu Harley, and I really want to thank this guy because he did something that will really improve the way that we use Harley. Not only us, I mean us talking about the community, but yeah, it was a really good improvement. So basically, what he did is he generated his name is check Yasro from the Discord community did this huge improvement that we can now generate a configuration file for Harley, and it's going to be looking like this. I already have one locally to show it in here. Let me show it. All right. So with a configuration file like this, you can name it like whatever you want. I just name it Harley JSON. You can specify all the network map that you have for your network. So you can generate like multiple channels and put different names to those channels, things that was not possible on Harley before. Right now I have CH1 in here, but I can generate a new channel named coffee. And when I run Harley with this, with a flag, to read it from this file, it will generate two channels for me, one named CH1 and one named coffee. And not only that, I can even include just one organization in one of those channels. So the good thing for this is you can have, for example, 3 organizations. Organization 3, and have a channel named public. And so the channel public, all the organizations are going to be present, and have another channel named coffee where only organization 2 and 3 can be available. So this is pretty good to do like complex testing of complex scenarios for you on Harley. You can also change the name of the organizations. They doesn't have to be org 1 or 2 or 3, etc. You can actually change the name of the organizations to Costa Rica, Nicaragua, or Panama, and Brazil, for example, just to name a few. And you can also name your users. So in this case, I was creating 3 users, which is producer A, producer B, and roster. And you can, instead of having users named user 1, user 2, user 3, you can now have named users with this. And the way that you achieve Harley to do so is, instead of, if you're already familiar with Harley, you will run Harley new to generate a new network with Harley.n, and you pass the Harley JSON file. This will read this file and generate a network using all these configurations for you, which is really, really, really good. Okay, just to finish, I want to run the end-to-end test. Okay, so yeah, while this finish, this is really convenient, and I really want to thank Hesru, I think, yeah, it was. Let's see. Yeah, Hesru. Or Hesru. I don't really know how to pronounce this name, but I just really want to thank him. So we did release already this on Harley. It is version 1.1.0. I actually found a glitch this morning, so I will be publishing 1.1.1 in a few hours or minutes. I don't know still. But the thing is that I will be releasing a patch version tonight. So be sure to install, if you want to test it, install version 1.1.1, and let me know, like, test it very well. I did run some tests, like generating projects with this configuration, with the legacy configuration, and with no configuration at all. I did run several tests for this before merging it, but please, if you can just give it a look and merge it, and giving me any feedback that you have on the process, I would love to apply it if you found like any problems with it. But yeah, I think this is a good step forward for Harley, for your use cases and for your tests. So yeah, all right. So I think this is it for today's video. I hope you liked. I hope you guys liked it. Please join our Discord community if you haven't done so already, and let us know the projects that you're working on, or if you're having any troubles that we can help you. We'll be really happy to help you resolve your problems. And please recommend Convector to your colleagues, your coworkers, or your peers in general. So yeah, thank you very much again for joining to this episode, and I see you on Discord or on 2 weeks. Right?